Welcome to Surviving the Dream with your hosts, Casey Arnold
and David Conley.
We're here to talk to people who seem to have their dream job and find out, what did it take? Is it what they imagined? Is it worth it? How do they do it?
Join us as we uncover the secrets of surviving the dream. Hello, Casey.
Hi, Dave. We almost talked over each other. It's going to be one of those days.
It's going to be one of those days. It's too early for us, which is why we've got a great guest today. He's a hyphenate. We've had several hyphenates on this, but this one has gone from sports psychology to acting. So, and he was a sportsman himself. It's Jake Jensen. Hello, Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Good morning. How are you?
We're good. We're highly caffeinated, in case you cannot tell. We're happy to have you here.
Very happy to be here.
So, which one of those many hyphenates was the original dream? Like 8-year-old Jake was like, when I grow up, I'm going to be
8-year-old Jake thought he was going to be a concert pianist. So, that didn't pan out. I play the piano. I play it quite well, but I ended up, I couldn't sit for that long. So I had to do something active. I'm somebody who needs to be moving. So I think the piano dream kind of went out the door after a while.
But you've had a stand-up desk like piano, like they have now. Or was that invented too late for you?
No, I've never seen one of those.
They have a standing piano?
They don't, but I'm saying they could, because they have stand-up desks now, don't they? When you go into someone's office and they're standing behind their desk, why not have a stand-up piano?
Sure, a standing desk with an electric keyboard. It's not too late to make the dream happen, Jake.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, was it electric, or what kind of pianist were you?
Well, when I was 8 years old, I asked for a piano for Christmas, and my parents were like, okay, that's not what most 8-year-olds ask for. And so they bought a upright Yamaha piano that's still at their house, and I played it many, many years.
And what were you playing?
Mostly classical.
Wow.
Your average 8-year-old fare, just walking around humming Beethoven as he eats his Cheerios.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I've always been a hyphenate doing lots of different things. But
So is 8-year-old now looking at you going, what did you do with your life, Jake? What did you do?
Well, some days. I know my dad does
that. What does your dad do?
My dad just always wants me to simplify. He thinks I'm trying to do way too many things, and it drives him crazy. So, but I have a little bit of fun with that.
And what does your dad do for a living?
He was a lawyer.
There you go. That's a sensible job, isn't it?
Very sensible.
Yeah, that follows very specific rules. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. And what about your mother?
My mom's a professor.
Oh.
And she's much more accepting of me doing many different things.
And what kind of professor?
English. But she teaches writing. Like business.
Okay. All right. Okay. We're getting there. There. All right.
Okay. So you can't sit still because playing the piano is just, you need to run around. By the way, did you know that if you play a concert organ, the big organs, they use their feet too?
Yeah, I actually play the organ, so I play foot pedals.
He knew that, Casey. I feel like he did know that.
I did know that. I do know
Maybe
that.
we just need to list careers, and you can let us know when you don't do that one.
There's a lot of those.
Casey's going to come up with a load of suggestions. Did you know the violin, you can stand up for that one?
Hey, wait, you know that they play the organ with their feet? I didn't know until I saw it in concert. I can't be the only person who learned that at a show. Dave, you knew that?
I knew that, yes, of course. Yeah,
right,
I did know that.
I'm representing the less intelligent people who are listening with me. Thank you, my people. I know I'm not alone.
Consider your job well done there. So you have a PhD. I mean, so you're a doctor, Jake, really, aren't you?
I am. I don't usually go around introducing myself that way, but
let us say it for you. So,
right.
Dr. Jake, your PhD is in what? Sports psychology?
It's actually in sports psychology, yes.
Wow.
To help you understand why you can't sit still, or what is that?
Well, I'm much better at helping other people than myself.
So are you helping out elite sports people? Trying to work out
I work at a university, so I help in the U.S., we have pretty high-level athletes at college. Mm-hmm. So I help them, and I'm also on the U.S. Olympic directory for sports psychologists. So I get referrals for Olympians as well. So that's fun.
That's pretty top of the heap.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fascinated by this because I'm English, and they always said the problem with the English is that the last bit is mental, and that's why we always used to lose to Australia at cricket. And that's why we never used to win Wimbledon. We'd get to the semi-final, and then the pressure was too much.
Because all of your emotions are repressed?
No, because the pressure is too much. Because playing at Wimbledon, you're playing in front of the whole of the country expects and wants it so much. The pressure is just, and so how do you work with a sports person to get over that? How would you have made Tim Henman the champion over Pete Sampras?
Ooh, that's a tough question because I watched those matches when I was growing up.
And Sampras said he was as good as him. He said Tim Henman's as good as me. It's just the last percentage bit, which is mental.
I think it's so hard because there's no way to prepare for that other than one time a year. There's no for like a Tim Henman at Wimbledon. There's no other tournaments that even remotely approach that level of pressure. I would definitely do some visualization imagery, putting yourself in those moments, imagining playing in front of the royal family, that kind of crowd, so you're mentally trying to prepare for that as much as you can. And even mentally rehearsing or visualizing unsuccessfully some moments of that, but then like overcoming that. So it's not just seeing yourself always being successful, but actually seeing like a big point that you lose, but then resetting and moving on from that.
That's fascinating. I've always thought it was about the positive, but you've got to work out what to do in those negative moments as well then.
That's something I've changed a lot as I've worked with athletes is I think when I was first trained, it was all like, let's just be positive, visualize the positive. But I think there's times where you want to visualize mistakes and then how to move on from that or losing a big point or a big moment. So I think that's important to actually prepare for those because you're not going to be successful all the time.
Is that to like wire your brain so it's less panicked when that happens? So you're like, oh, wait, I know when this happens, I respond this way.
Exactly. And I think, just being prepared for that because it's kind of like an actor. You can't prepare that you're going to book every single role or nail every audition. But how do you move on from that? How do you reset? How do you stay motivated? So, I think absolutely preparing for all scenarios, honestly, that you face.
And you've become an actor, right? So I'm kind of intrigued. We were having this conversation before you came on talking about how, I've always had this thing that sports people, I know a few sports people who then become actors. And is it looking for that high that you had as a sportsman?
I think definitely after my tennis career kind of ended, it was like, what's going to fill that performance kind of void that I'm feeling, and having that high and acting definitely fills that, being on set, adrenaline rush. It's different, but it fulfills a similar need that I had as a tennis player.
So wait, how do we go from piano player to tennis player to PhD to actor? I feel like there are some gaps we need to. Tell us the story.
Did you do a paper round? That's what Casey wants to know.
No, but those are like a lot of leaps. Like you've had a lot of different paths. I'm sure there's something that ties them all together, but like at what point do you realize you want to pivot, or how did you get from piano to tennis? Because both of those require a lot of skill and time commitment.
Yeah, my mom's a very good tennis player. And so I had played tennis even when I was younger with her. It was always something fun we could do together. But then when I was about 13, I just fell in love with the sport. I don't know why. I just suddenly something clicked that I became obsessed with tennis, following the professional tour. And that became pretty much my teen years. Tennis became the dominant activity that I did. Got a college scholarship, had fair level, played on the kind of low level pro tour for a while. So that really dominated my teens and early 20s. But I do remember in college, I suddenly just got the acting bug kind of hit me. But I was, I couldn't really pursue it because I was on a scholarship with tennis, finishing school. And then I finished college, and it was like, I had that idea in my head. I want to be an actor, but I was actually scared to tell anyone that, to admit that. So I I coached tennis for a while, and then I decided to go back to school and get my master's and PhD. But even during that time, that thought of being an actor was still in my head. I just was scared to only pursue that without a backup plan, or even to, tell my family, hey, I want to be an actor. So I guess in some ways to me, it felt like the safer route: get degrees, get a career, and then pursue acting. And it's worked out for me. Everyone has their own path with things, but for me, that's worked out.
Isn't there also the longevity of acting? I mean, like, you can act until 103 if you live that long. I mean, I grew up and I wanted to be a sportsman. I was never really good enough, and I remember a crucial time in my life where I was picked for a cricket match for a trial. I know Americans are going, cricket, what was that? But it was a big moment, and I also had an audition for the National Youth Theatre, and I chose the audition because I thought I was 16 and I was smart enough at 16. I could still be an actor when I'm 70. I could only be a cricketer till I was 30.
Yeah.
Did that go into your thinking, or were you just? I've got my nephew's a sportsman, and they're professional sportsmen. I'm thinking, and it's fantastic, but they're 25. They've got 5 years left, right?
Yeah.
Sure, you get an injury and then your career's over.
You're done. Yeah.
That didn't go through my head as a 16-year-old, but it did go through my head as a 27, 28-year-old.
Right.
Going, hey, my career as a tennis player, I can play the sport my whole life for fun, but as pursuing it at the professional level, I have my windows narrowing rapidly. Whereas acting, I hope that the best is ahead of me, not behind me at this point, so.
Is it?
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting. Is it fun to play tennis for you now, or is it like, this is something that I was a professional at?
It's fun to still beat up on younger guys that I can still beat. Like, I'm lucky that it's always been something that's really fun for me. I don't need to play it at the same level I used to still just love to get out there and play. So I'm really fortunate that way. It's still my favorite form of exercise. It's stress release. I still love to do it.
Do you use the visualizations that you use on your clients for yourself?
Absolutely. I practice all the mental training techniques on myself. And, the thing is, I'm much better mentally now as a player than I was even in college. I'm physically not as fast or as strong and all that, but I absolutely am mentally a lot better than I used to be.
I imagine it helps with acting too, right?
Yes. I think at first I was trying to figure out how to bridge that gap using the mental skills to help my acting. And I think at first I got frustrated because while they're very similar, there's also a lot of differences. But I think I've now learned how to use a lot of the techniques for my acting as well.
And so how does it measure up to the nagging acting dream, getting to do more of it now? How does the reality measure up?
I think it's a little bit like an athlete going through a performance slump or plateau where you just have to get through those. I've been auditioning this year a lot and not booked anything, and it's hard to be resilient. And I think that's where being an athlete does help. I'm not physically injured, or I'm not going through I feel like my work is good, but I'm not booking the roles right now. And I just have to keep learning from this process and keep going. And I think being an athlete does help me with that.
They say as an athlete that you learn from your failures. I think Derek Jeter was very good about this at baseball, where he said to be a successful baseball player, you miss 7 out of 10 times.
Yeah.
Do you take that into? Is that something that you would take into your acting? That it's okay, I'm one closer now to get to booking because I've now had more auditions.
Yeah, I think so. I think the hard thing is with tennis, for example, I either won or lost, so I had that feedback. But I also, I could look at stats, like where's my first serve percentage? How many forehands did I miss? Whereas with acting, I feel like I do this great audition, but usually there's no feedback. So it's like, well, maybe they decided to book the guy with short black hair, and yeah. I did a great job, but I don't have the look that they want. Mm-hmm. But I don't ever know. I usually don't know why, and that can get very frustrating sometimes, especially for somebody who's, as an athlete, you're used to stats and feedback to be able to evaluate your performance. Whereas with acting, yeah, I can send my audition tape to my acting coach and he can give me some critiques, but normally I do the best job I can, submit the audition, and then just have to learn to move on. So I think it's a little more frustrating in that sense, is just how do you get the feedback and improve?
And what is the most exciting thing about acting? Is it the booking the role for you?
Oh, I think being on set is the most exciting thing. There's an energy to being on set. And that's actually what's hard when you go, months without being on set. It's like, I need that feeling. It's kind of like, again, going back to being an athlete, I can practice a lot, but there's still something about playing a tournament, being on the court, that gives you that high. And it's hard to have that when you're not on set.
Does it really compare? I mean, like being in a tennis tournament and being on set, how comparable is it?
For me, it gives me the same level of, I don't know, energy, adrenaline. There's just an energy to it. I mean, they're different, but they fulfill a similar need, at least for me.
Well, it's like a connection, and they're both like a team effort.
Yeah, and I think you have to stay so in the moment, present, whether you're a tennis, on the court or with your scene partner. There's a you have to be so in the moment, paying attention, listening, adapting, in the moment to whatever the situation is. And I think that's what's exciting to me.
Do you do improv also?
In my acting class, I do.
Yeah.
Improv scared me so much at first when I first started acting. Oh, that was...
It's kind of delightfully terrifying, but everything you just described about acting, I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds like improv. You have no idea what's going to happen. You just have to say yes and go with it. Exactly. You got to be present. Otherwise, nothing good happens.
Yes, and.
Exactly.
If you had a choice right now and they said, Jake, right, you're going to have a 25-year-old body forever, which we'd all like, right? I'd like that. What would your choice be, do you think?
Which career?
Oh, that's a tough. I love both of them.
You're gonna. Oh, he's welched on that one. He said both, so he's not let down any tennis fans or acting fans.
Well, also, what happened to sports psychology or piano?
Yeah,
somebody's losing there.
Think about the organ because you can use your feet.
Yeah, I'm just trying to solve problems.
No, I can see that. Finding solutions.
I mean, I think the nice thing is that as an actor, the more skills you can have, no matter what is music, sports, that opens up doors for roles too. So I think that's the cool thing about acting is tennis and piano have given me acting opportunities, and I see in the future them helping me with certain roles as well. So I think
you've just done a movie where you played a tennis player, right?
Yeah, Challengers. Yep.
Yeah. So that, and I presume that must have been a red letter day when they said we're looking for an actor who's played tennis. Hello,
you look Scandinavian, which all my family's Danish. So
you're like, wow, you just suddenly moved so far up the list before you even opened your mouth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Although I made a movie once where it was about someone who, which because it happened to me, where it was about somebody who was perfect for the role, was written for the role, and then they said, "You're not quite right." It happens, but it happened. But it happened in a positive way for you. And did you? How was that? How was that experience when you're putting both worlds together?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to because I know that world so well. So, I played on the Challenger circuit, so. A movie about the world that I know. I mean, it made me, and that's nice because there's starting to be better tennis movies, I think, like Challengers and some others. But yeah, it's really cool when the worlds collide, and I hope I see more of that moving forward because it's certainly. I mean, I was like a little kid on Christmas morning, I mean. Yeah.
It's interesting you say they're making better tennis. Do you find it quite difficult when you're watching sporting movies? I mean, I remember going to see a movie. It was about rugby. Clint Eastwood had directed it, and it was about rugby. And he used professional rugby players, but he put his son in a pivotal role. And I remember watching it at the cinema, and his son made a mistake, which I don't think Clint caught, which was like, and I remember almost shouting out at the cinema, "Not 10! He hasn't kicked it 10!" because it was such a good game. And then I went, "Oh no, it's a movie," and he didn't understand that he's broken the rules.
Absolutely. I mean, Zendaya, I think overall they did a good job with the tennis in the movie, but there's like one scene where Zendaya is playing a coach and she's just feeding balls and she's using the wrong grip. And I'm just like, no, she wouldn't be doing that. Most people wouldn't pick up on it, but absolutely. I'm like sitting there watching it going, no, I cringe.
You're right.
You suddenly remember you're watching a movie.
Yes.
So are you always trying to like hone new hobbies and skills then for either your 14th career or just so you have something else to add to your acting bag of tricks?
Yes. I think I've turned down 7 or 8 auditions this year because they wanted somebody who could play the guitar. And I fit the role perfectly other than I don't play the guitar. So I'm like, okay, I've got to learn to play the guitar. I mean, and then I need to learn to surf because I've turned down probably in the last 5 years in LA, 20 roles where they wanted a surfer. So surfing and guitar playing, those are my next 2 to learn.
So if we interview in 3 years' time, we will find out you've got a PhD in surfing or something. Is that what we're going to...
Maybe not a PhD, but at least I can get up on a board, I hope.
So day to day, what are you doing? Are you working at the university and working with athletes?
Yeah, I'm actually just going up for full professor this semester. So that's the highest rank that you can get, which will be nice to get. I teach 2 classes. They're hybrid, so they're part online and part in person. But my university is very, very flexible with my schedule, which has allowed me to also be an actor, which I am obviously very, very grateful for. So I teach 1 evening class, and I can put it online if I need to. So it's and then I work with the athletes, but again, I can work around my schedule, scheduling mental training with them. So I'm very fortunate that I get to do what I get to, because I really enjoy being a sports psychologist, but I also gives me flexibility to pursue acting. So I'm very fortunate with that.
And you're working with Olympians, so those are not just tennis players. Are some of these actually like sprinters or middle distance runners or shot putters?
So at the university, I work with athletes we have, I think, 17 different sports. And so that really has prepared me the last few years to feel comfortable working with athletes from, a variety of sports. That's been a really good training ground for me.
Does the different sport determine what mindset you're doing, or do you find that it's common for all of them?
I think the biggest difference is just between individual sports, golf, tennis, track and field versus soccer or football, sorry.
Thank you.
Basketball, water polo. I think that's the biggest difference. I've learned a lot about working more with like team sports in that team sport environment, which is why I chose tennis, because I don't like team sports, but I've learned.
You just don't like people, right? Okay, and got that one. Now, but what is the crucial difference? I'd like to hear about that. That's kind of fascinating.
Well, individual sports, there's no subbing in or out. You're out there. You've got to figure it out. With team sports, you're having a bad day, you can sub someone else in. Just a lot more with like team dynamics, communication, working together. I find a lot more of what I do deals with the communication, working well as a group, a lot more group dynamics rather than individual. Is much more individual, much more centered just on yourself, much more selfish in a lot of ways.
Right.
Has there been any like through line you've noticed that more people struggle with? That's like the most common issue?
I think, most of the time athletes come to me because they're struggling with handling pressure or they're not performing well. So, I think that's just kind of a common, they usually don't seek out a sports psychologist unless they're struggling.
Right.
So I get to see them at their worst, not at their best usually. So, but a lot of it is feeling like they're not performing well. They're choking. They're not handling pressure moments. So a lot of what I do deals with anxiety and dealing with that in pressure moments.
Do you remember there was a Mets player? He was a catcher, and he was he couldn't throw the ball.
Yeah,
and it just got really. Yeah. He got the yips. Yeah. Did he? How would you solve an issue like that?
Well, actually, that's kind of a specialty of mine because I had the yips as a tennis player on my serve. A lot of patience. It's not a quick fix. That's one situation where like imagery does not work very well because a lot of times they can only imagine or visualize, not being able to throw or serve or whatever the yips is. So we do a lot of relaxation exercises, reducing tension in the body, calming the mind. And then, a lot of it's also kind of trying to figure out what's triggering that and causing it. A lot of times it comes down to unrealistic pressure they're putting on themselves. There may have been like a certain moment, a bad game where they choked, and it just becomes like a snowball effect. So a lot of times it's trying to figure out what's triggering it as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I feel like that could translate to so many different careers too.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what's your biggest success? You don't have to name the athlete, but do you have a moment where you're going, oh my word, I think I changed that athlete's life?
Yeah, there's one young tennis player right now who has pretty strong pro prospects, U.S. player, and had the yips, and I've worked with him for about a year, and he's made huge progress. So I can't say a name, but he's doing really well, and it's nice to see that. I think also just as being a tennis player, I really connected with him, in terms of helping him.
And does the yips come mainly in the serve, that moment where it's on you to actually?
Yeah, the yips tends to happen in sports where we call it closed skill, where you control the time. Mm-hmm. So like putting in golf, throwing, serving, it tends to happen more when you have time to actually think about it.
Right.
Versus reacting.
I remember talking to a soccer player once who scored spectacular goals but was missing tap-ins, and he said it's when it's when I don't think about it, it just second nature. I could volley it, I could just but when I had time to think of it and thinking I should score, he missed.
Yeah,
and he put it down to that.
Yeah, when you get in your head, it's no bueno.
And you see it even with actors, like with auditioning, where sometimes you get so in your head, especially now it's so much of it self-tape, but when we used to be in the room, actors would be waiting for an hour before the audition and would overthink everything and get in their head so much that they get and I've had it happen to me where you then standing in front of the, camera or the team of producers and you just, your mind goes completely blank. You can't remember anything. I think time is not always our friend in performance.
How do you help yourself out of those moments?
A lot of it is learning to not overthink, doing something, I meditate, I'll meditate and just kind of let my mind be at ease instead of like overthinking things. You have to trust that the work's already been done and then you go in and perform. Whereas I think overthinking, you have to trust that the work's already been done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that stand-up is like that. I think whenever I walk onto stage, I might be feeling a little not great, but I'll go, the work's done. This is just the icing on the cake. Yeah. Is behind the microphone. Would you agree with that, Casey?
Yeah, for sure. If you're in your head and you're like, oh, that person over there has their arms folded or, oh, why are they looking at me? Like any of those thoughts in your head are like, no. I wrote some jokes. I know that I'm funny. I know how to deliver a joke. I just need to be here in this moment and it'll work or it won't, right? Like tennis. Yeah. And sometimes even if it doesn't, and you can share with the audience of like, yeah, okay, guys, sure, that didn't land the way I wanted it to. Like acknowledge you're all living in the same reality. You can get through it much better than if you're in your head, you're like, no, the next thing I say is this, and they'll respond this way, and it'll go this way. It gets you just like too rigid and nothing good comes from that.
Have you done stage acting, Jake?
I've done a little bit of theater. LA's not a huge theater scene, but I have.
I noticed, yeah.
Yeah.
Although there's more theatres in New York than there are in LA than there are in New York. We can't what?
We can't sit still long enough.
They should put pedals down where the seats are.
Yeah.
There we go. But there is that strange phenomenon that I discovered that, well, I might not be now after COVID, but there were more black box theatres in LA than New York, which is really a theatrical town. But trying to get people to go to the theatre is very tough in this town. Yeah. I was just thinking that theatre gives you that. Certainly on the first night, it really, I remember every first night I've had as an actor, I was always going, why am I putting my body through this? They say it's enough adrenaline to kill an elephant or something for an actor on the first night. I feel the set is slightly safer than theatre. I don't know if you have had the same experience, but I feel like there's an adrenaline which is nice, but it's not the same as like, oh my God, why am I doing this? I feel sick.
Well, you can get a redo if you need it on set.
That's exactly right. Yes, there's no redo when you freeze on stage and can't remember your next line.
Yeah. Whoops.
That's right. There's no like undo in real life on a computer. Like
No, I think performing in front of a live audience, there's absolute adrenaline and high to that. That's super exciting. For me, the biggest thing with theater is just the time commitment, and again, balancing all that I do. It's just been a lot harder to be an actor, a stage or theater actor with the schedule that I have. That's why film and TV fits better with all the many things that I do.
Do you have a routine that you stick to that allows you to balance all of those different things?
There is no routine. Every day is different, which I find exciting. I love that part of my life is every single day looks different. But certainly I have routines in the sense of I have to get physical exercise. I try to eat well. There's definitely routines of my lifestyle, but in terms of like my schedule every day, it's very, very different.
Right.
And you have such transferable skills. Have you ever thought about or maybe you do it already, like helping out actors or people in other careers with the psychology of it?
Yeah. I haven't really done it as a business, but I have actors all the time asking me for advice on, how can I get through this difficult period? How can I be more resilient? How can I handle, pressure on being on set or especially auditions? I think that causes more stress than anything for actors. I find that I give out advice a lot, but I definitely I think doing some workshops and things would be something I'd really enjoy doing to be able to reach a broader audience. Because I do think there's a lot that I could offer to help really all performance, performing artists.
So there's one more career still out there?
Well, I don't know if that's a different career. Just expanding what I do already.
Is there a personality type that becomes an elite athlete, or is everyone completely different?
I think, the nice thing is I think you can have very different personalities and be successful. There's a certain ego / narcissism to being a top athlete, I think a lot of times, but I also know very high level athletes that are some of the nicest down to earth people, but they are able to flip a switch and be incredibly competitive.
That fascinates me because I'm listening to podcasts all the time with retired athletes, especially I'll say it for you guys, soccer players, who are absolute. Like Roy Keane, who, if anyone watched Ted Lasso, I think that's where Roy Kent was based on.
Yeah.
I listen to him now, and he's funny, and he's a nice guy, and he's great. But on the pitch, he was there was a switch. He became an animal. There was something that you're like, he would tear it up. And I listen to him now, and it's like, oh, lovely, cuddly Roy. What's that about?
Yeah, I think some athletes can flip that switch very easily, and I think others struggle with that. There's a tennis player this year that won the Australian Open, Madison Keys. She's one of the nicest, most down-to-earth people. I've met her, and a lot of people said for 15 years, she's too nice to win a major. And then it was so nice to see her at age 30 finally break through and win one. But it's been a process of 15 years of learning to kind of be able to be herself, but realize she doesn't have to switch into a different personality to be a champion. But that has not come easily for her. Whereas I think a Serena Williams could have just flipped that switch much quicker. So I think you have to be yourself. But I think for some, have to learn to be more competitive, whereas others very, very naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, Dave, don't you find also, though, when you're on stage, that performer you, there's a switch that you're still you, but it's a heightened level. And Jake, kind of like you said, that playing tennis now is just for fun because you can kind of let go of the pressure of the win.
Mm. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And I think it was you, Casey, said that you have that veil of confidence when you go on to become a stand-up comedian. You are a heightened self. I would want to hang out with the guy with David Conley, the comedian who's on stage all the time, because it's too much. But he talks a lot. For an hour sometimes.
What's so fun about acting is that it gives me a safe space to take on a completely different persona.
I love that about acting.
I mean, that's what's so fun. I think that's what I've loved about acting is I don't consider myself to be a total douchebag, but I can play a character that is, and it's fun to in a safe space, totally in habit or become that character. And that's
I love that. I feel like you see the world through a different prism and you go, oh, okay, that's what he's thinking.
Have you discovered any new parts of yourself through getting to do that you're tap into a part that you're oh, hello, other self I never knew was hiding, waiting to come out and play?
So I cry now so easily. I can cry at the drop of a hat. And before I was an actor, I don't remember ever crying other than, when my grandma died. I mean, I don't know if I was kind of raised, men don't cry. And now I cry all the time. So I'm much more comfortable with my emotions.
Thanks for holding it together for this. I am English, so I'm glad that we haven't had any emotion like that on this podcast.
That's right. You can't handle all those feelings in real life.
I would. I don't know how I'd be able to cope with that. Yeah.
My acting coach is British as well, so
I'm so sorry.
So what do you think? What would 8-year-old you think of this amalgam of careers all sort of happening at once, or the trajectory of piano just for fun and tennis just for fun now? How would he think of your life now?
I think my 8-year-old self would be very proud that I found acting, because my 8-year-old self loved living in an imaginary world, loved impersonating other people. And that kind of got tapped out of me, I think, as I got older. And I think acting brought me back to a little closer version of my 8-year-old self than I was. So I think my 8-year-old self would actually be very happy to see this adult version of Jake now, because it's actually allowed me to be more who I was as a child in a lot of ways.
All right. Well, we are coming towards the end of the podcast, so we're going to go to questions now. It's going to be quite interesting because you've got several careers, so I'll be interested in how you answer some of these. If you won the lottery, the big one, what would you do?
I would set up an animal sanctuary for endangered species. I love animals.
I knew there was another career somewhere.
No, I'm obsessed with. I love animals. I could follow nature and animals all day. I spend a lot of time in Florida. I do a lot of work with manatees and helping injured manatees and things like that. So somewhere I would set up a animal rescue center.
All right.
Love that. Okay. What is your favorite go-to snack or comfort food? And does it change depending which of your career hats you have on?
Okay. It's yogurt. I'm absolutely obsessed with yogurt. I say the flavor changes depending on my mood, but my favorite flavor is pear, but they don't have it in the US. I have to go to France for it.
It's a good excuse to go to France.
Absolutely.
I've got to go and get a snack. I'll be in Paris for the day.
I lived in Switzerland and France, so I speak French. So,
I want to hear about that. It's my favorite part of the world is that border between Switzerland and France.
Yeah.
Okay. Where were you living? I'm going to ask you now.
I lived in Geneva and then Neuchâtel and Freiburg and Lyon.
Nice.
I love
Go ahead.
Go on.
I just was going to say it's my fantasy to like retire in the south of France or the French countryside somewhere.
Lake Annecy, I thought it was
stunning. Yeah, it's one of the most beautiful in the world.
Stunning. Okay, what's your favorite animal and why?
Horse. My grandpa had a ranch. I grew up riding horses. I love horses. So, yeah, it's my favorite.
Your list of skills on your acting resume must take up half the page.
But can he act?
Right. I feel like you read it and you're like, I just hope he can say things and make it believable.
He can't walk and talk at the same time, but he can ride a horse, play tennis at the same time. Yeah.
It's like a lot of times in the comedy casting, you know, like someone really attractive will walk in and you're like, oh, please be able to just like vaguely even land a joke. Because sometimes, you know, people are not given all of the skills in one body. Okay, final question, Jake. If we really knew you, what would we know about you?
If you really knew me, I'm one of the most clumsy people in the whole world.
Didn't see that coming.
No, I would not have predicted that.
I trip over my feet. I cause accidents. I think my family knows this about me. They know that I'm actually I come across as, you know, and I'm an athlete and all this, but I'm actually just this total like klutz. And I'm the comedic relief in the room. Although I don't lead with that. You know, that's not what I lead with. But I think people that really know me know that side of me.
Interesting. All right, another list of skills to add to the fire. That you're just like a puppy who's so excited about life you can't contain it all.
I don't know.
All right, well, we have learned a lot about you. You are a man of many facets, and I don't even know that we could label you with a single career. So good job surviving just dreams. I'm just going to make it plural.
Jake hyphenate.
Would you say that you're living the dream?
Yes, I absolutely would say I'm living the dream. But I will say, you know, living the dream is not always easy. I think you have to get through those moments of frustration. And like right now, I mean, it's a little bit frustrating as an actor. A lot of productions have left LA. We had COVID and then we had the strike and things have been really challenging. So I'm living the dream, but I think I also have to realize that living the dream also includes moments of frustration and patience and resilience. I think that's what I would say.
Yep. We're right there with you.
Well, Jake, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, your several dreams and surviving them all. We really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us. And thanks everybody for listening. Bye.
I'm going to go and look at my life now. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Don't forget to use your feet. Quick shout out to Mike Nicholas for being our tech savior and Carmen Sclafani, also known as Wiser Time. Thanks for our music. And thank you all for listening.